Well, you've heard the song, I shot the sheriff but did not shoot the deputy. Well, we got a little different twist on it. Our last podcast that we just dropped was I shot the judge but did not shoot the deputy. It all happened up there in the hills of Kentucky, and we're going to tell you all about it as James and I discusses the last episode of Charlie Crimebuster that we dropped, entitled I Shot the Judge but Did Not Shoot the Deputy.
The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are solely those of the individuals interviewed or participating and do not represent those of Charlie Crimebuster nor Peacemaker Network. All individuals described or mentioned in the presentation should be considered innocent until found guilty in a court of law. This presentation contains subject matter such as violence and graphic descriptions, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener and viewer discretion is advised.
So we want to welcome you aboard the Charlie Crime Train today. James, we had an exciting week. We just survived Milton, decided to give our state a little visit, didn't he?
Oh yeah, she certainly did.
No
or
doubt
or
about it.
he did. I guess it's because they
Yeah,
named it
yeah.
Milton. I guess you could have a female named Milton nowadays.
Yeah, yeah. You know, for you all that are listening that aren't from Florida, it's cooling down just a little right now today.
Right.
And the next day or two, it's going to be cooling. I saw a little thing the other day, or yesterday, a little I thought was very amusing. It said, "Looky there, trying to be so nice and cozy, and then last week you tried to kill us."
Yeah.
Talking about the weather here, you
Uh-huh.
know?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But we do
Yeah.
want to welcome you to the YouTube channel, brand new YouTube channel that we've launched. We're very excited about it. We're getting a lot of attention on it. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
That's right.
If perchance you would like to reach us with a shout out, we say reach out with a shout out. You can reach us at charliecrimebuster@gmail.com, charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. And we often say, James, you can ask questions, you can make suggestions, and even make objections, right?
That's absolutely right. And we'd also like to invite everybody to visit our peacemakernetwork.com website. And there you can become a supporter of our podcast and the men and women, first responders, law enforcement, military by becoming a badge member. That's badge, BADGE member for only $3 a
Yeah, all
month.
right. Yeah.
That's less than a penny a day, right?
Not
Less
much
than
at
a penny a
all.
day.
No.
And if they want to binge cast, how you like that for a word, right?
I
Binge
like that.
cast.
I like that binge cast. Yeah.
If you want to binge cast, you can go to charliecrimebuster.com. Charliecrimebuster.com. So there you
Exactly. Yeah.
go.
Yeah, and also let's make sure you folks hit that subscribe button. That way you can be right up on everything we do as we drop it, right, James?
Absolutely, absolutely. We want you to stay informed, and that's the best way to stay informed is to subscribe or even sign up on our website. You can become a member as well. We'll keep you
There you
notified.
go. There you go. There we go. So
So
James,
Charlie,
yeah, we got another doozy today, right?
yeah, where did you come up with that title?
Well, we all know about the pop song, I shot the sheriff, but I did not shoot the deputy.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, this is kind of a different take on it. Up there in Kentucky, there was a sheriff that shot the judge, but he did not shoot the deputy.
Hmm.
And I thought it was really appropriate. I mean, you talk about an appropriate title. There was a reason why the deputy was not shot, even though he may could have been shot. So that's just kind of an intriguing way to introduce this entire case that we're discussing on the Charlie Crimebuster episode.
That's right. That's right. So, can you kind of give us, and for those that haven't listened to the podcast, can you kind of give us an idea of what this case is really all about?
Yeah, sure. There was a sheriff up in Kentucky, southwest Kentucky.
Hmm.
Actually, it's Whitesburg, Kentucky, and it was September the 19th. And so this is one of them fresh ones,
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
not even a month old hardly.
Right.
And Sheriff Sean Mickey Steins shot and killed the district judge there by the name of Kevin Mullins. And that was right inside the judge's chamber. In fact, 3 o'clock, he walked into the chambers of Mullins, told courthouse employees he needed to talk with Mullins privately. And two walked into the inner chambers and all of a sudden closed the door. And several minutes later, shots were heard. And then Steins, the sheriff, who shot the judge, walked right out and just surrendered himself to the authorities and said, just treat me fair, treat me fair. And the real interesting thing is the Kentucky State Police, now that investigated it, they, of course, know who did it, but they said as of right now, they are not releasing what everybody is asking. Why? Why
Hmm.
did that happen? The motive,
Interesting. So I know this is an assumption, but for those that may be asking the question, did he use his service revolver to do that?
Yes, he did.
Oh,
He used the weapon that he carried. Right. Yep.
wow, wow. But you mentioned in the podcast that the judge and the sheriff were friends. What did you
Yeah,
mean by that?
that's what's so amazing about this. I mean, a lot of times a sheriff will bond with his bailiff, and the sheriff happened before he was sheriff. He was the bailiff in that same courthouse.
Oh, okay, okay.
And I pointed out in the podcast that we've all seen like these programs, Judge Judy, Judge
Right.
so and so, Judge so and so, and
Mm-hmm.
you can hear the banter between the judge and the bailiff,
Yep.
and you can tell they get very very close, and they also were very closely entwined, you might say, because both of them worked on a pretty outstanding program there in Southwest Kentucky on trying, as you know, James, in these Appalachian Mountains, meth is a terrible, terrible problem,
Oh, that's right, Charlie. Yeah.
it is just really terrible. And they had actually come together, both the judge and the sheriff, and worked on a program where they were taking many of these people that they had been arresting and putting in jail. They were able to somehow do a program and redirect those folks into treatment. And a number of those folks, as a result of that, did get sober, and there were some very promising results. So here is a guy, a sheriff, and a judge who had done good work together, who were friends because they had known each other for so long and worked so closely together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why this is such an intriguing case. Why would a sheriff walk into a judge's chamber and shoot him and kill him?
Well, share with us a little bit more about what area this is in the part of the country. We know it's Kentucky, but
Yeah.
and it's in the Appalachians, but like, is it like in a podunk area, kind of like out of the way, or is it on a main street, or,
Yeah. Well, it is up in Southwest Kentucky, and as many people, and I mentioned in the podcast, they probably will be a little familiar with it because just right before then, there was about 2 weeks prior to that. You might have heard this about actually September the 7th. There was a shooting on the interstate of
yes,
75 there,
yes,
where
yes.
a shooter got on a ledge and he was just shooting cars at random with this rifle. In fact, 5 people were wounded and 3 people were also hurt in car crashes. I mean, kind of hard to keep your car going level when bullets are flying around in the car, right?
Right,
So there
right.
were 5 people that were wounded, and there were 3 people that ended up being injured in car accidents. And
Wow.
then there was a manhunt for this shooter. And 3 days later, they found him. He was a guy by the name of Joseph Couch, and they found him he had died at a self-inflicted wound,
Uh-huh.
and he had killed himself out there. So this is the same area that took place. Now, I also mentioned that I was, I know a lot about this area. In fact, I've been in that very town, have been in the very sheriff's office where this sheriff resided. Wasn't that sheriff? It was a previous sheriff. But this is an area not too far from a place called Harlan, Kentucky. And as a kid growing up in East Tennessee, we always heard these stories about bloody Harlan.
Mm.
And so many people have heard of that. Then also there was a Netflix series on Netflix titled Justified, and that whole series was about a marshal that was there in that same area. So when you talk about Southwest Kentucky, you're talking about that area there where Bloody Harlan is, and also that place where justified was as well. So it's up there in the hills, right there, not too far from East Tennessee, and not too far from Louisville, Kentucky, just
Hmm.
down toward Tennessee from Louisville, Kentucky.
And both of these men were well respected though in their community though, right? Can you kind of explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, neither of these. That's why this is such a shocking
Yeah.
case for
Yeah.
particularly people in this little town called Whitesburg, because everybody knows everybody. Kevin Mullins, he was actually in the 47th Judicial District there in the county, and he had been there since 2009. He had been appointed by the Kentucky Governor Steve Beshear, but after that, he actually won the election the following year, and he had been reelected ever since. He prior to that, he had served as an assistant attorney, Commonwealth's attorney there in the county.
Uh-huh.
He was a native of Pikeville, graduate of the University of Kentucky and the University of Louisville School of Law. So, I mean, he was a well known, well thought of, very respected judge. I mean, they had his funeral there in one of the schools, and judges from all over the state of Kentucky came, and they just sung his praises. So he was a very respected judge in the same way the sheriff was. He had served as a bailiff there. He was
Hmm.
elected sheriff in 2018 and was reelected in 2022. And again, both of these guys were well respected because of what they were doing in the county to try to turn around the drug problem. So both of them well respected, well liked, and everybody thought that they were very close friends.
Wow. It's sad that you would actually
It is,
result in
isn't it?
shooting your friend, right?
Terrible. Yeah, yeah.
There obviously had to be a reason. And has that been disclosed at this moment?
Well, that's what this mystery is all about, and that's why we chose to do that. Because the mystery in this situation, James, it isn't who did it. I mean, we know who did it. They actually had him on video, and you could see him shooting the judge. So there's no doubt about who did it. The real question, James, is why did he do it? Why did he do it?
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. Well, let's change the tune and the tone of our podcast for a little bit, and just let's lighten it up just a little bit, and tell us about the crazy crook story of the
Oh,
week.
the crazy crook story. I love this one, James, because everybody, when you think about how these crazy crooks come to be, you always think of some dumb idiot somewhere.
All right, right.
But when you get involved with breaking the law, even smart people can become dumb crooks.
Yeah.
And this is just as a tremendous example of exactly what happened, because this was a scientist in Long Island, who actually had him a front there that he was a laboratory there, a scientist in a laboratory there, and was allegedly working on certain drugs to try to help people get off of addiction. And he had a break in his laboratory. So he picks up the phone and he calls the police to respond. Only problem, James, is when they got there, they discovered that this brilliant scientist had his own meth lab there and was actually manufacturing illegal drugs and was selling illegal drugs. And so, you would think if you have a laboratory, but you're using that laboratory for illegal drugs and you're manufacturing drugs and selling it, I don't think you would think about calling the police even if somebody broke in,
That's right, right.
but but this idiot did, and they found all kinds of drugs there. They found $40,000 in cash, which is very,
Wow.
very prominent when people are dealing drugs. You usually always find drugs and cash together.
Yep.
And at first, even the attorney was trying to say, "Oh, he's such a brilliant man. He's such a brilliant man. He does so much good and all this sort of thing." But then in the end, he ended up pleading guilty, and so here is a brilliant scientist who becomes a very crazy crook because he called the police on himself. So, again,
Um,
hard to make this stuff up, right?
yeah, you can't make this stuff up. You just can't. Yeah, you just
Yeah,
can't.
no doubt about it. Yeah.
Okay, back to our story. Tell us a little bit about the deputy. There were at least of what has been not disclosed at the moment, but is
Well,
probably some additional
the
information, I'm sure.
yeah, the deputy. And the reason why I put into that title, he did not shoot the deputy, because there's been so much in the press about the fact that there was a deputy. Not a lot has been released in the media with this, but one thing that has continually come before us is that the sheriff was involved in a deposition, and that deposition was involving one of his deputies, because one of his deputies, a guy actually by the name of Ben Fields, he was a deputy sheriff,
Hmm.
and according to the lawsuit, uh, there was a lady who was on home incarceration, and when you do that, you have to wear that ankle bracelet
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
people see, in shows and that sort of thing, and I've seen that used so much. So if you are, they're letting you, on probation or something other, or even on parole, or even if they're letting them wait for their court hearing,
House
there is
arrest.
this, yeah, house arrest type
Yeah.
thing, So you
Yeah.
you use that ankle bracelet. Well, he talked to this young lady, the deputy did, and found out that she could not afford, because you have to pay for that ankle monitor. There's a
Hmm.
fee that you have to pay for it.
Hmm.
Well, she
Hmm.
couldn't pay for it, so he said, quote unquote, they could work something out. Now, you know where we're going with that.
Oh boy.
So then, he actually would exchange that. He would, the night before she were to appear in court, she would come and meet him, and he would put the ankle bracelet on her then, so that it would look like when she come to court she had it on. But during that time, he wanted sexual favors for what he was doing.
Whoa.
And, here is a guy who's violating the trust of his oath to defend the Constitution. Here is a guy who's tainting the badge, because he's doing something very, very terrible that taints all law enforcement.
Hmm.
He was disrespecting his sheriff, betraying his sheriff, betraying his calling, and all of that. So it certainly was a situation where the sheriff had every right to be upset at the deputy, and so now they're suing the sheriff and the county. They're suing the sheriff because they're saying, number one, that he didn't train the deputy correctly, and number two, that he did not move in a responsible manner quickly when he realized that this was happening. Now, he did fire the deputy. When he found out about it, he fired him, for
Hmm.
unbecoming to a deputy. But so, you know how these lawsuits go. You sue everybody. So the sheriff was involved in this lawsuit where the family of this girl, this young lady who was taken advantage of by this deputy, the sheriff was being deposed in a deposition. And the interesting thing about it was that James, he wasn't taking this deposition very well. He was very stressed out, and they were talking about during the deposition that he seemed like his mind was something else. He seemed like he was stressed out. He had to ask for several recesses and this sort of thing. In fact, one of the county papers there had tried to get a comment from him about another case, and usually he's always talking to the press and very open and transparent. It took him a good while to get back to him, and when he did, he told them that he had been under such stress the last couple of weeks that he had lost 40 pounds. And
Wow.
so, a lot of people then are immediately saying, hey, that's probably what's going on here. That probably has something to do with the fact that, that this deposition is taking place, and maybe that had something to do with him shooting the judge. For interesting enough, where this sexual abuse of this inmate, where the sexual abuse of this inmate occurred, was in now get this, James, the very same judge's chamber where he shot the judge. And so here's two very, very strange things happening in the judge's chambers.
Wow.
When he sexually abused this inmate, he took her to this very same, the very same chamber. So that's where he took him. took her rather. And so there are some people who are thinking, well, maybe this has something to do with what is happening here, with this. Maybe that's happening there for that, So that was involved in that. So that's when we talk about the deputy. I mean, he certainly had every reason to be upset at the deputy because what? The deputy disrespected his office. The
Right.
deputy betrayed him as a sheriff. So some people were thinking, that maybe something was happening with the judge in that area. But when I get down to it, I do not really believe that that's the reason he shot the judge. Also, I should point out that even though this sexual abuse of this inmate happened in the judge's chambers, there's no evidence whatsoever that has come forth in any fashion or any form to say that the district judge, Kevin Mullins, was involved in that sexual abuse. And the judge wasn't involved in the lawsuit. So that's why I say he did not shoot the deputy, though he may have felt like shooting the deputy.
Right, right,
He
right.
did not shoot the deputy. He shot the judge. So this is something that's taking place with the judge, and that brings
So,
us right to the motive, right?
right. So, is that a possible motive, or are there other possible
Well,
motives?
there's a couple of possible motives. Remember earlier I talked about that he and the judge had been working together with this drug program
Uh-huh.
to try to get people off drugs. Well, anytime, my radar goes up anytime that drugs are involved.
Right.
Because think about all the violence
Yep.
that comes with drugs. Think
Yep.
about all the things that are entangled with drugs. And keep in mind, if these guys were getting healed of their addiction, then that means that they did not have the demand for the drugs. So
Mm-hmm.
that means that the drug suppliers were being hurt
Right.
because they weren't making the profit that they were making prior.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people thought, well, anytime you got something like this happening, maybe the judge was involved in something with the drugs, maybe the sheriff was involved in something with the drugs. So that's one possible motive, but I haven't seen any evidence to say that that's true. Another motive is the motive about this, about this lawsuit that's going on as far as that. But I don't believe that is that as well. But the answer, I believe, to the real motive here, James, is why the sheriff shot the judge. I believe you can go and find that motive in the last hearing that they had there, where they had the preliminary hearing to see if there
Mm-hmm.
was enough evidence to hold over the sheriff, and there was. During that time, they actually played a video in court where you could see the sheriff shooting the judge. But they did not play the whole video. But, Charlie Crimebuster, your old crime busting buddy here, we were able to find out what was on the other part of that video. And on the earlier part of that video, he goes into the judge's chamber. He tries to reach his daughter, and then he turns around and he actually tries to reach his daughter by taking the judge's phone and calling his daughter there. So get this, his teenage daughter's cell phone number, is in the judge's phone. And immediately when he sees the judge's phone, and then he sees that that's his daughter's number, and he tries to reach out to her, that's when immediately he shoots the judge, rather. And so, in my opinion, and I believe the attorney is hinting this, that it appears that the sheriff was aware or thought he was aware of the fact that the judge, who is a married man, was having a misappropriate relationship with the sheriff's teenage daughter. Now, that's the kind of thing that would cause a father to do something like that,
Yeah.
you know?
So, okay, Charlie. Well, of the three motives that you mentioned, which motive do you think is the real one?
I think by far that would have to be it. I mean, you have to think what would take an outstanding sheriff? What would it take for an outstanding sheriff to do something like that?
Well, you and I
You know,
are you and I are
yeah,
both
yeah,
fathers of
fathers,
daughters.
exactly,
So
exactly.
we
Now,
we can
it's
certainly get it.
Yeah, it's not right, I mean, it's still not right to
No, it's
do
not
it,
right.
because think about this, and if somebody's listening, I hope you'll listen to me very carefully because I used to investigate child sex abuse, and I felt like I wanted to kill everybody I investigated that
Hmm.
was guilty of that. But think about this. Now, the sheriff, I mean, all of us could say, "Hey, I could see where he could feel that way. I could see where he could do that." But not only now has he had this terrible thing happen to his daughter, but now his daughter will not be able to be with her father, again because he's going to be in jail, right?
Right, right.
And he's causing more pain to his daughter.
Hmm.
He's causing pain to his own family, and he is getting probably some sort of self gratification because, hey, man, you do that to my daughter, I'm just going to stand by and let that happen,
Hmm. Hmm.
So I can understand him doing that, but still, when you get down to it, it's not the real answer to handle it. So I really believe that's what happened because again, why would a sheriff as outstanding as he was, why would he do something like that? And you can think of, and keep in mind, this is a teenager, and this is a married middle-aged judge,
Mm.
and now right now we need to say to people, this is all speculation.
Right,
We
right.
don't know what happened, but you have to come up with a motive based on what was and also introduced in the court in the state of Kentucky. If there is an extreme emotional disturbance and you react to that extreme emotional disturbance according to Kentucky law, then you can't be charged with murder. You can be charged with manslaughter, but you can't be charged with murder if you're react. It's called. People probably heard this term, James. A In the heat of passion.
Hmm.
In the heat of passion. It's a crime in the heat of passion. Well,
Hmm.
the law in many states, and particularly in the state of Kentucky, says that if you are acting in the heat of passion, and remember, he's going in there, he's going to talk to the judge about this. I think he's been bothered about this for probably a week or two. That's why I think he lost the weight that he lost. He's been thinking about that. I'm going to talk about it. But then when he saw whatever he saw on that phone, and we know he saw that his daughter's number was in there because he tried to call her from there. Whatever he saw on that phone, that was the thing that snapped him. That was the thing where he had to just pick up the gun and start firing away. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So yeah, I believe that that's the motive, and the judge has said in the preliminary hearing that he's going to present his case. He's going to defend his client, that his client did not murder, but his client actually acted because of an extreme emotional disturbance. And James, can you think of anything more emotionally disturbing than to have somebody take your teenage daughter
Mm.
and according to the state law, if he does anything to him, it's actually sexual assault and it's called rape.
Hmm. Hmm.
So what could be more emotionally disturbing than somebody out there doing that to your daughter, right?
Right. Exactly. So let me ask you this, because this is a very touching subject, and again, we want to remind our listeners that this is just speculation.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
in the court, if in fact that's the case, then temporary insanity could be a a viable response, right?
Yeah.
From
Well,
the defense.
it borders on temporary insanity, but the better defense to use is extreme emotional disturbance,
Hmm.
which is called, a crime of passion. It's like all of us when we hear that, if that really happened that way, all of us can say, most of us can say, I can see why the sheriff would have extremist disturbance by that. I think that would disturb any good father, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. So what can we expect in the next case? Do you think?
Well, I'm not sure about the next case, but I do think that we're going to see. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that this is pled out. Either way, I think it's 50-50. They might plead out this case so it doesn't go to trial, and that this thing has to be relived over in the eyes of the good people there in Whitesburg, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Or at the same time, people who love the judge and his family may say, "Hey, we want to see justice." But I would say that if it does come out and there is evidence, and we don't know yet what they found on those phones because they were sent off, both the judge's phone and the sheriff's phone and the daughter's phone has been sent off, to the experts to look and see what's there. But if we do find out that the judge was involved in this, and I hope it's not, but it looks like it is, if
Yep.
we do find out that he was involved in this, then maybe even the judge's family would not want this to go to trial, and maybe they will come up with some kind of plea deal for him, because we do know that if that's what happened, I think that the attorney will be successful in saying that there was extreme emotional disturbance, and he'll be able to get those charges knocked down to manslaughter.
Mm-hmm.
And with manslaughter, they may be able to go ahead and do a plea deal. I think he'll still go to jail, but I don't think it'll be, a long sentence in regards to the fact that he acted as of a crime of passion.
Wow. Well, I know that the crime community and the crime fighter community is rather tight, both law enforcement and the legal community. So they're rather intertwined. Do you think that there
Yep.
might be some workings on there with the sheriff and the prosecutor having some type of past that they may be able to work something out a little more?
Well,
amicably?
Well, the interesting thing about it is that the state attorney general has actually appointed another attorney general to handle this. It's not the one that's locally there, because he actually recused himself
Yep.
because he had a relationship with a judge.
Yep.
So this will be a outside person, which I think is proper in this situation, who will look at it and go with it. But I would think that the whole town of Whitesburg, the entire community, if indeed this is what happened, and again I want to say, James, and you said it, and I hope our people realize we are talking about speculation,
Right.
but I think it's reasonable speculation, but it's still speculation. It hasn't been proven at this point. But if that is the case, that the judge was having some kind of terrible, terrible relationship with the sheriff's teenage daughter, then I would think that the town of Whitesburg would probably be better off without this going to trial,
Right.
and them going ahead and settling this thing, with some kind of plea deal, that type of thing. I think it would be better for all the families involved, don't you?
Right. I agree.
So we'll wait and see, but we'll sure keep the people informed, won't we? And we'll let you know
Absolutely.
what's happening. Yep. For sure.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for the recap on the I shot the judge, did not shoot the deputy.
Yep. All right. And tune in next week. We'll have another exciting crime case for the folks to latch on to.
That's right. And again, folks, if you want to binge cast, we call it binge
I like
cast.
that. Binge cast. That's good.
Yeah,
Yep.
you can go to charliecrimebuster.com
Yep.
and catch up on all of our past episodes.
That's right. Yep. James, it's been a joy talking with you today, bud.
Likewise, and thank you again, Charlie.
So until next time, this is Charlie Crimebuster reminding you, stay safe, stay alert. Yep. For the life you save, it could be your very own.
You have been listening to Charlie Crimebuster. You can find additional podcasts at charliecrimebuster.com. You can also support our first responders, military, and law enforcement communities at peacemakernetwork.com, or subscribe to our YouTube channel using tag @CharlieCrimebuster. Even visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/CharlieCrimebuster. Or if you would like to make suggestions for future podcasts, please send your ideas to charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope that you will join us next week for another exciting crime story with Charlie Crimebuster.